The Defiance emerged from its emergency jump 17 light-years from Earth, the dark matter drive cooling with an ominous hiss. Emergency systems blared throughout the ship as damage reports flooded in from every section. Captain Ilara Chen stood motionless at the center of the bridge, her face illuminated by the red emergency lights, feeling the weight of 300 souls, now the last free humans in existence. "Damage report," she ordered, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. Lieutenant Kowalski's fingers danced across his console. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7, contained by emergency fields. Dark matter drive at 62% efficiency. Life support stable. Communications array damaged during our escape. Casualties: 27 injured, 8 critical. Dr. Reynolds is requesting additional medical personnel. Ilara nodded. "Have all off-duty personnel with medical training report to sickbay." She turned to face the tactical station. "Lieutenant Commander Wade, what's our tactical situation?" Wade, his dark eyes intense beneath a furrowed brow, studied the sensor readings. No pursuit detected. The Marin fleet appears to be maintaining position around Earth. Our jump signature was masked by the atmospheric disruption from their bombardment. "Small mercies," Ilara murmured. The bridge fell silent as the main viewscreen switched to a long-range scan of Earth. The blue-green jewel that had cradled humanity was now mirrored by spreading patches of angry red, impact sites where Marin bombardment had struck. Atmospheric fires were visible even from this distance. "Can we get any communications?" Ilara asked, her voice softer now. Communications Officer Patel shook her head, wiping away tears. "Nothing coherent, Captain. Just fragments. Emergency broadcasts, distress calls." Her voice broke. "They're being systematically jammed by Marin frequencies." Ilara took a deep breath. "Record everything we can. Those are the voices of our people. They deserve to be heard, even if we're the only ones left to hear them." She turned away from the screen, facing her bridge crew. Each face reflected the same devastating mix of shock, grief, and survivor's guilt. "I need a moment with all of you," she said, gesturing for Kowalski to cut internal ship broadcasts. When he nodded confirmation, she continued. "What happened today will be recorded as the darkest day in human history. We've lost our home, our families, our civilization. Each of us is feeling things no training could prepare us for." Her voice remained level, though her hands gripped the railing until her knuckles whitened. "You might be asking why we ran, why we didn't stay and fight until the end, like so many brave souls did today. I asked myself the same question as we jumped away." She moved to, "This ship was designed to test theories our scientists believed might give us advantages in deep space exploration. The adaptive shield matrix, the dark matter drive, the quantum communication array, but I believe they'll serve another purpose now." Dr. Sanjay Mehta, the ship's xenanthropologist who had been summoned to the bridge during the emergency, stepped forward hesitantly. "Captain, during my research into Marin expansion patterns, I identified anomalies, systems they avoid, trading routes they abandon without explanation, communications they can't seem to intercept. There might be," he paused, measuring his words, "others out there, others who resist." A fragile hope flickered across the faces of the bridge crew. "Then we find them," Ilara said firmly. "But first, we need to disappear. Become ghosts that the Marins can't track or predict." She turned to Chief Engineer Okafor. "Maya, how quickly can you reconfigure our energy signature? I want us to look like anything but a human vessel." Maya's eyes lit with understanding. 12 hours, Captain. Less if I can pull personnel from non-essential systems." "Do it. Lieutenant Wade, plot a course for the Carina Nebula. The radiation and dust clouds should provide cover while we make modifications and repairs." For the first time since they'd fled Earth, a sense of purpose began to replace the paralyzing shock on the faces around her. "We are the last free humans," Ilara said, her voice resonating with determination. "But I promise you this, we will not be the last for long. The Marins believe they've conquered humanity today. Before we're done, they'll learn that humanity is not so easily broken. As the Defiance altered course toward the distant nebula, Ilara returned to her ready room. Only there, with the door sealed, did she allow herself a moment of grief. She opened her locket containing photos of her parents and younger brother in their home outside New Delhi, all gone now. She permitted herself exactly 5 minutes of tears before washing her face and returning to the bridge. Her resolve hardened into something the Marins would learn to fear. The vessel that would one day shatter chains and topple a dynasty began its journey not with a triumphant declaration of war, but with a solemn vow whispered among 300 survivors. Earth would not be forgotten, and its children would return. "You expect us to trust humans?" asked Cressvala, her crystalline mandibles clicking rapidly in what Dr. Mehta recognized as skepticism. The Altarian resistance leader paced the perimeter of the meeting chamber, carved deep within Proxima Centauri IV's abandoned mining complex. "For 12 generations, we've heard only stories of your kind, a stubborn species that refused Marin diplomatic overtures." Captain Chen raised an eyebrow. "Diplomatic overtures? Is that what they call planetary bombardment now?" A ripple of something like laughter moved through the assembled resistance fighters. A dozen different species united only by their hatred of Marin rule. "The Marins excel at revising history," explained a Volcrex information broker, his insectoid eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "Official archives claim Earth requested Marin intervention to resolve internal conflicts. They erased us," Lieutenant Commander Wade said quietly, "and then rewrote us as willing subjects." Cressvala stopped pacing, her crystalline exoskeleton catching the light. "And yet here you are, the ghosts of a conquered world, with technology that shouldn't exist." She gestured toward the portable shield generator Maya had set up at the chamber entrance. "No species develops adaptive shielding independently. It's always stolen Marin technology." "We didn't steal it," Maya responded with professional pride. "We developed it through quantum field manipulation theories that our scientists—" She stopped as Captain Chen raised a hand. "The technical details aren't important right now," Ilara said. "What matters is that we have mutual enemies and potentially complementary goals." She turned to address Cressvala directly. "You mentioned something that might change everything. We've risked everything coming here. What do you have?" The Altarian leader hesitated, compound eyes studying each human face in turn. Finally, she nodded to one of her lieutenants, who produced a data crystal and placed it on the rough-hewn table between them. 3 cycles ago, our deep infiltration operatives intercepted a secure Marin transmission," Cressvala explained. "It took until now to decrypt it fully. The contents—" She paused, mandibles twitching in what Dr. Mehta recognized as their expression of awe, "are beyond anything we expected." Dr. Mehta connected the crystal to their secure datavat. The holographic projection that materialized above the table showed star charts, technical schematics, and text in an unfamiliar script. "That's not Marin language," he murmured, adjusting his glasses. "The structural patterns suggest—" "Lyriacs," finished Cressvala. "The forbidden tongue. The language of the Shapers." The chamber fell silent. Even among the crew of the Defiance *, the name Lyriacs carried mythic weight. A species spoken of in whispers across 100 worlds, said to have reached technological heights no contemporary civilization could match before mysteriously vanishing. According to Marin suppressed history, the Lyriacs simply abandoned their worlds before the dynasty's rise, explained the Volcrex broker. But resistance networks have long suspected they were the first victims of Marin expansion, and that they left something behind, something the dynasty has been searching for millennia. Lieutenant Kowalski leaned forward, studying the schematics. "These look like weapon designs, but unlike anything I've ever seen." "Not weapons," corrected Dr. Mehta, his fingers tracing patterns in the projection. "Keys. 7 of them, if I'm interpreting this correctly." His eyes widened behind his glasses. "And this section here, It contains coordinates to the Lyriac's homeworld. Impossible, breathed an Ithorian engineer, her tentacles curling in agitation. The void currents surrounding that system are impenetrable. Hundreds of Marin expeditions have been lost attempting to navigate them. Maya studied the technical readouts, her expression shifting from skepticism to excitement. Maybe for Marin navigation systems, but these schematics. She turned to Captain Chen. The quantum fluctuation patterns matched theoretical models our scientists were developing for the Defiance's dark matter drive. We might be able to modify our navigation systems to compensate for the void current's distortion effects. Cresvala's crystalline form seemed to shimmer with intensity. You understand what this means. If the Lyriac's homeworld remains untouched, if there's technology there the Marins couldn't access, it means hope, Captain Chen finished. Real hope, not just survival. An alert chime from Lieutenant Wade's tactical scanner interrupted the moment. Captain, we have incoming Marin patrol vessels, at least 3 cruiser class. They're sweeping the system with deep penetration scans. They shouldn't be able to detect us this deep in the mineral deposits, protested one of the resistance fighters. They're not looking for you, Lieutenant Commander Wade replied grimly. They're looking for us. They must have tracked our modified energy signature. Captain Chen turned to Cresvala. We need to leave immediately, or we'll bring the dynasty down on all of you. Will you trust us with that data crystal? The Altarian leader's compound eyes studied Chen for a long moment before she nodded. Take it. Find what the Lyriacs left behind. Her voice dropped to a whisper that carried surprising weight. But know this, human, if you're captured, if there's any chance the Marins might extract this information from you, we'll destroy ourselves first, Captain Chen promised. The Defiance carries Earth's legacy. We won't let it become a Marin weapon. As they prepared for emergency departure, Dr. Mehta copied essential data from the crystal. The xenoanthropologist's hands trembled slightly with excitement. Captain, he said quietly as they hurried back toward their shuttle, there's something else in this data, something about human neurological patterns that I don't fully understand yet. References to compatible interfaces and resonant cognitive structures. What does it mean? Chen asked, helping the last of their landing party aboard. I'm not certain, Mehta admitted, but I think the Lyriacs might have been expecting us. Specifically us, humans. The shuttle lifted off as Marin energy signatures appeared at the edge of the system. Behind them, Cresvala and her resistance fighters vanished deeper into the mining tunnels, carrying with them something they hadn't possessed in generations, the belief that the dynasty could be defeated. Aboard the Defiance Captain Chen called her senior staff to the briefing room. The ship was already accelerating toward the system's edge, preparing for the jump that would take them into uncharted territory. Set course for the coordinates in the Lyriac's data, she ordered. Whatever's waiting for us there, it's time humanity claimed its place in this fight. The underground vault hummed with energy that seemed to respond to their presence. Chief Engineer Maya Okafor ran her hand along symbols etched into walls that pulsed with soft blue light, technology that had waited 12 millennia yet remained active. It's like the entire complex is waking up, she whispered. The power systems are unlike anything I've studied. They appear to draw energy directly from quantum fluctuations. Captain Chen watched as Dr. Mehta moved reverently among holographic displays that had activated at their approach. The xenoanthropologist's eyes were wide with wonder as he attempted to decipher the complex Lyriac script flowing through the air. This is their historical archive, he explained, fingers tracing patterns in the light. From what I can interpret, the Lyriacs achieved technological singularity roughly 15,000 years ago. They expanded peacefully, establishing a federation of allied species based on principles of knowledge sharing and autonomy. Lieutenant Commander Wade remained alert, his tactical scanner sweeping the massive chamber. And then the Marins happened. Dr. Mehta nodded grimly. The archive describes them as the hunger that consumes stars. Early Marin society was built around resource acquisition at any cost. When diplomatic overtures failed, they turned to systematic conquest. The holographic display shifted, showing galaxy maps with spreading darkness, the early expansion of what would become the dynasty. The Lyriacs saw what was coming, continued Meta. Their predictive algorithms calculated that conventional resistance would fail. The Myron's willingness to sacrifice billions of their own people to achieve victory made traditional warfare futile. Captain Chen studied the displays. So they developed these keystones instead. As weapons? Not exactly, Maya interjected, looking up from a console she'd managed to interface with. The keystones are components of something called. She hesitated, searching for a translation. The Great Rebalancing. From these schematics, they appear to be reality anchors, designed to stabilize certain quantum states while destabilizing others. Lieutenant Kowalski frowned. In plain language. Maya's eyes lit with understanding as data flowed through her interface. They're designed to selectively disrupt technology based on specific quantum principles, precisely the principles that Marin technology relies upon. It's brilliant. Instead of fighting the Marins directly, they created a way to simply turn off their advantages. But something went wrong, Dr. Meta said softly, reading ahead in the archive. The Marins attacked before the keystones could be fully deployed. The Lyriacs made a desperate decision. The holographic display showed 7 brilliant points of light scattering across the galaxy map. They hid the keystones throughout the galaxy, Captain Chen observed. But why not use the ones they had? Because they're genetically locked, Maya explained, excitement building in her voice. Each keystone requires a specific neurological pattern to activate, a safeguard to prevent misuse. And according to these readings, her voice faltered as the implications hit her. Dr. Meta finished the thought. They're keyed to human brainwave patterns, patterns that didn't exist when the keystones were created. A heavy silence fell over the chamber as the crew processed this revelation. Are you saying the Lyriacs somehow knew about humans? 12,000 years before we achieved spaceflight, Lieutenant Wade asked incredulously. Dr. Meta adjusted his glasses, a habit when deep in thought. Not exactly. The data suggests something more profound. The Lyriacs were masters of quantum manipulation, including directed evolution. They seeded hundreds of worlds with genetic material programmed to eventually develop specific cognitive architectures. Earth was one of those worlds. Captain Chen stated, the pieces falling into place. The prime world, confirmed Dr. Meta. Their most successful experiment. They engineered an entire evolutionary path, leading to a species with precisely the neurological configuration needed to activate their failsafe technology. Maya looked up from her console, eyes wide. The Marins must have eventually figured this out. That's why they attacked Earth with such disproportionate force. They weren't just conquering another world. They were eliminating the key to their own vulnerability. Captain Chen approached the central platform where the first keystone pulsed with energy. Unlike the other technology in the chamber, which responded to their presence with soft illumination, the keystone blazed with intensity as she neared it. How do we activate it? She asked. According to these instructions, it requires direct neural interface, Maya replied. A human must establish contact and consciously accept the connection. Lieutenant Wade stepped forward. Captain, with respect, we should consider the security implications. If this technology can rewrite quantum laws, the risks of interfacing with it are less than the risk of leaving it for the Marins to find. Chen finished. We can't take the keystone without activating it first. The security protocols won't allow it. Before anyone could object further, she placed her palm against the pulsing surface of the keystone. For a moment, nothing happened. Then light flared brilliantly, streaming up her arm in patterns that matched human neural pathways. Captain Chen gasped, her eyes widening as information flooded her consciousness. Captain. Maya moved to pull her away, but Chen raised her free hand. I'm all right, she said, her voice strangely calm. It's communicating, sharing. Her eyes focused on something none of them could see. I understand now. The keystones aren't just weapons. They're seeds. Each contains part of the Lyriac's collective knowledge, preserved for whoever could unlock them. The light receded, flowing back into the keystone, which now glowed with steady purpose. It detached from its housing, floating gently into Captain Chen's outstretched hands. "It's encoded to my neural pattern now," she explained, examining the device, smaller than expected, a crystalline polyhedron that seemed to shift dimensions when viewed from different angles. "And it's showing me where to find the others." Dr. Mehta looked troubled. "Captain, what you just did, allowing an alien consciousness access to your mind, the risks were incalculable." "So does the risk of facing the dynasty without every advantage we can find," she replied. Her expression softened slightly. "But I appreciate the concern, Doctor." Proximity alarms from their perimeter sensors shattered the moment. Lieutenant Wade checked his tactical display, his expression darkening. Marin signatures detected entering the system. Multiple hunter ships. Configuration suggests they're equipped with void current navigation upgrades. "They're tracking us." Captain Chen carefully secured the keystone in the specialized containment unit they'd prepared. "Time to leave. Dr. Mehta, download whatever you can from the archives." Maya disengaged safely from their systems. As they prepared for emergency departure, Chen paused at the vault entrance, looking back at the ancient repository of knowledge. "They waited 12,000 years for us," she said quietly. "We won't let them down." The crew rushed toward their shuttle as Marin energy signatures grew stronger on their scanners. The race to recover the remaining keystones had begun, a race against an enemy that had conquered half a galaxy, with humanity's survival hanging in the balance. The conference room of the Defiance had never been designed to host such a diverse gathering. Captain Chen observed the assembled representatives, 17 species whose evolutionary paths had never been meant to cross, united only by their resistance to Marin domination. The air recyclers struggled with the variety of atmospheric requirements, creating a slight haze that lent the meeting an otherworldly quality. "The Carix delegation remains unconvinced," rumbled the massive representative of the silicon-based lifeforms. Its crystalline body structure refracted light in hypnotic patterns as it spoke. 3 successful raids do not constitute a viable strategy against the dynasty. You strike and vanish while our people continue to suffer reprisals." Commander Layla Karim stepped forward, her compact frame belying the intensity she projected. The ship's tactical officer had earned respect across species boundaries for her brilliant strike strategies. "With respect, Ambassador," she said, activating the holographic display at the center of the table. "Each raid has been specifically designed to minimize civilian exposure while maximizing impact on Marin military capabilities." The display showed the results of their most recent operation, a precision strike against a Marin communications hub in the Cygnus sector. The keystone-modified weapons of the Defiance had disabled the facility's defenses without triggering the automated retaliation protocols that typically resulted in civilian casualties. Furthermore, Lila continued, highlighting population centers surrounding the facility. "We extracted 73 political prisoners scheduled for neural reconfiguration. Among them were resistance leaders from 6 worlds represented in this room." The Carix representative's crystalline surface pulsed with reluctant acknowledgement. "Your tactics show promise, but the scale remains insufficient." Captain Chen understood the frustration. After 4 years of Marin occupation, many species had forgotten what hope felt like. Some had never known it at all. "Scale is precisely why we've called this gathering," she said, rising from her seat. "The first keystone has proven more effective than we anticipated. When deployed correctly, it creates cascading failures in Marin quantum communication systems. But a single keystone can only affect a limited area." Dr. Mehta stepped forward, his academic demeanor a stark contrast to Layla's military precision. "Our analysis of Lyriac's records suggests that each additional keystone we recover will exponentially increase our disruption capability." Two keystones working in concert affect 8 times the volume of space as one alone. The Volcrex information broker, whose species had suffered under Maron rule longer than any other present, clicked his mandibles skeptically. And yet you possess only one, with 6 remaining scattered across Maron-controlled space. The statistical probability of recovering even one more before the dynasty locates and destroys them all is negligible. Before Chen could respond, the conference room door slid open. Lieutenant Commander Wade entered, his expression controlled but urgent. "Captain, we have an unscheduled arrival. A Maron battlecruiser just dropped out of hyperspace 5,000 kilometers off our port bow." The room erupted in panic. Several representatives reached for concealed weapons, while others frantically activated personal shielding devices. "They found us," hissed the Athorian delegate, skin shifting to camouflage coloration instinctively. This gathering was a trap. Captain Chen's voice cut through the chaos. If it were a trap, they would have sent more than one ship. She turned to Wade. "Tactical assessment." "That's what's strange, Captain. They're broadcasting on an open frequency. No weapons charge, no reinforcements detected. They're requesting." He hesitated, double-checking his datapad. Diplomatic parley, under ancient codes of neutrality. The conference room fell silent. "Put it on screen," Chen ordered. The main display shifted to show the bridge of the Maron vessel. Standing center frame was a Maron male of imposing height, his iridescent scales marking him as nobility. Unlike most Maron military commanders, who typically displayed augmented combat appendages, this one appeared almost ceremonial in ornate diplomatic regalia. "I am Prefect Corlin, House Vextalon, 7th Circle of the Imperial Consortium," he announced, multiple eye stalks focusing with unsettling intensity. "I seek audience with the human captain of the vessel designated *Defiance*. Chen stepped into range of the communication pickup. "This is Captain Ilara Chen. State your purpose, Prefect." The assembled representatives watched in tense silence as the Maron noble performed a gesture none had witnessed in living memory. The formal bow of equals, forbidden in Maron diplomatic protocol for 8,000 years. "Captain Chen, I represent a growing faction within Maron society that can no longer support Emperor Tax's HFY's policies. We seek alliance against a common enemy." Disbelieving murmurs spread through the conference room. A Maron prefect, a member of the ruling caste, proposing alliance with subject species was unprecedented. A deception, warned the Volcrex broker. Marons do not rebel against their own hierarchy. Prefect Corlin's eye stalks shifted, focusing on the Volcrex. Under normal circumstances, that would be correct. But circumstances have not been normal since the emergence of the *Defiance*. He gestured, and the transmission expanded to show data flowing across secondary screens. "Your raids have demonstrated vulnerabilities in systems we believed impenetrable. More significantly, the Emperor's response has been disturbing." Images appeared showing devastation on a scale that shocked even those accustomed to Maron brutality. Entire worlds reduced to ash, their populations eradicated not for rebellion, but for proximity to suspected resistance activity. 3 billion lives on Proxima Centauri IV, 5 billion on Alteris, 8 billion on Vesh Prime. Civilian populations with no connection to your resistance, Corlin continued, his voice carrying genuine distress. These were not military actions, but extermination events, ordered directly by an emperor growing increasingly paranoid. Captain Chen studied the Maron carefully. "Why come to us specifically? There are other resistance factions with more resources." "Because you possess a Lyriax keystone," Corlin replied simply. "And we know where to find 2 more." The conference room erupted again, but this time with urgent whispers rather than panic. If Corlin spoke truth, his information could change everything. "What do you want in exchange?" Chen asked, maintaining a neutral expression despite the surge of hope his words triggered. "Survival," Corlin answered. "For my house, my followers, and eventually for the Maron people themselves. The Emperor's path leads to mutual destruction. Your keystones offer an alternative, selective disruption of military systems without civilian casualties. Chen glanced at Dr. Mehta, who nodded slightly. The xenanthropologist had studied Marin culture extensively. If he believed Corlin's behavior indicated sincerity, it carried weight. I propose a test of good faith, Chen said finally. Provide the location of one keystone. If your information proves accurate, we can discuss broader cooperation. Corlin performed another formal gesture, right hand touching left shoulder, the Marin symbol of oath-binding. The second keystone is hidden in the oceanic depths of Aquila Prime, disguised within an ancient religious monument. I will transmit exact coordinates and security protocols. As the data transfer began, Chen noticed something remarkable happening around the conference table. Representatives who moments earlier had been at each other's throats were now unified in cautious hope. Even the skeptical Kirik's delegate's crystalline surface pulsed with new patterns. Perhaps the most powerful weapon against the dynasty wasn't the keystones themselves, but what they represented, the possibility that even those who had benefited from Marin dominance might choose a different path forward. The atmospheric scrubbers of Processing Station 47 cycled endlessly, struggling to process the toxic cocktail produced by its massive refineries. Darius Kumar moved silently through Maintenance Shaft Delta 9. The specialized stealth suit Maya had designed, rendering him nearly invisible to standard Marin sensors. Behind him followed a strike team carefully selected for this mission. 3 humans from the Defiance *, 2 Altarians whose crystalline biology disrupted scanning technology, and a former Marin security officer from Corlin's faction. Approaching primary junction, Darius whispered into his communications implant. Security presence. Lieutenant Kowalski's voice responded from the cloaked shuttle hidden in the station's waste emission cloud. Tracking 16 guards on standard patrol routes. Additional security drones on maintenance level. The worker uprising in Section 12 is drawing attention away from your position. The diversionary uprising had been difficult to coordinate but essential to their plan. Small acts of worker resistance, machinery sabotage, production slowdowns had been escalating for weeks, carefully orchestrated by resistance sympathizers. Today, those simmering tensions had boiled over exactly when needed. Central control is 3 levels up. Advise Satek, the Marin defector. His slender build and pale scales marked him as a member of the technical caste, making him invaluable for navigating Marin systems. The primary neural network hub will be protected by quantum-locked security fields. Darius nodded, which is why we brought these. He patted the specialized equipment pack containing components that linked directly to the 4 keystones now in their possession. Each successful recovery mission had increased the stone's collective power exponentially, allowing for increasingly ambitious operations. They reached the security checkpoint guarding the central shaft. 2 heavily augmented Marin guards stood at attention, their ocular implants scanning continuously. Hold position, Darius instructed his team, removing a small device from his equipment belt. The modified keystone transmitter, no larger than his palm, emitted a targeted quantum disruption field. He activated it, sending a precisely calibrated pulse toward the checkpoint. The effect was immediate. The guards' augmentations flickered, their synchronized movements becoming erratic. Neither raised an alarm. The disruption affected their communication implants first, followed by their combat systems. Now, Darius signaled. The team moved swiftly, neutralizing the confused guards with targeted stun weapons before they could comprehend what was happening. Satek accessed the security terminal, his fingers moving with practiced efficiency. I have control of local monitoring systems, looping surveillance footage. Now, they ascended the central shaft using maintenance ladders rather than lifts, avoiding the most obvious security measures. Reaching the control level, Darius paused, sensing something wrong. Too easy, he murmured. Where are the elite guards? A facility this critical should have Praetorian units. Satek's eye stalks twitched nervously. Command must have redirected them to handle the uprising. We should proceed while we have the advantage. They advanced cautiously towards central control, encountering only token resistance from standard security protocols. When they reached the massive reinforced doors guarding the nerve center of Processing Station 47, Darius deployed the full Keystone interface device. Initiating quantum disruption sequence, he reported to the Defiance *. Stand by for Phase 2. The device hummed to life, creating an expanding field of energy that interacted with the security systems in ways that defied conventional physics. The massive doors, designed to withstand military-grade explosives, simply disengaged, their quantum-locked mechanisms recognizing the Keystone signature as having administrator-level authority. Inside, they found the control center staffed by a skeleton crew of technicians. No elite guards, no Praetorians. The technicians raised their hands in surrender immediately, many showing signs of relief rather than resistance. "Something's wrong," Darius reiterated, securing the room while maintaining heightened vigilance. "This is too easy." Dr. Meta's voice came through their comms. "Captain Chen is concerned as well. Marin response fleets should have been mobilized by now. Proceed with caution, but continue the mission. We may not get another opportunity." Following the Lyriac schematics they decoded, Darius located the access point to the ancient communication system hidden beneath the control room. A section of flooring slid away, revealing a shaft that descended deep into the station's foundation, into sections that predated Marin construction. According to the Lyriac's records, this entire station was built around one of their communication nexus points, Dr. Meta explained through the comm. The Marins never fully understood the technology, but recognized its strategic value. Darius and Sautek descended into the hidden chamber, finding themselves surrounded by technology that bore the unmistakable elegant design principles of Lyriac's engineering. At the center stood a crystalline structure resembling a tree, its branches extending toward a domed ceiling inscribed with mathematical formulas. "The broadcasting node," Sautek whispered with something approaching reverence. "Legends speak of these, but I never believed." Darius approached the structure, removing the specialized interface Dr. Meta and Maya had created. Based on principles derived from the Keystones, it was designed to connect human neural patterns to the ancient Lyriac's communication network. "Beginning interface procedure," he reported, placing his palm against the crystalline surface as Captain Chen had done with the first Keystone. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Light surged through the structure, pulsing in patterns that matched human brainwave frequencies. Darius gasped as information flooded his consciousness. Not just data, but emotions, memories, purpose. The holographic display aboard the Defiance showed Marinax Prime in unsettling detail. A world transformed by 10 millennia of imperial rule into something both beautiful and terrible. Artificial continents shaped into perfect geometric patterns. Oceans tinted with bioluminescent organisms engineered to glow in patterns that spelled out dynasty propaganda visible from orbit. Defensive systems layered so densely that the planet's surface was barely visible beneath the web of energy signatures. The orbital defense grid alone has more firepower than the combined fleets of 3 sectors. Admiral Corlin observed, his eye stalks swiveling to assess the gathered leadership. The former Marin prefect had formally taken command of the rebel Marin forces after a failed assassination attempt, clearly ordered by the Emperor, had claimed the lives of 17 high-ranking defectors. Captain Chen studied the grim expressions around the planning table. The Liberation leadership had grown to include representatives from 37 formerly subjugated species, united by recent victories and growing hope. The recovery of both the 5th and 6th Keystones had transformed theoretical possibility into imminent action. "We need to understand what we're facing," she said, nodding to Chief Science Officer Wei Cheng. "Doctor, please share your findings." Wei Cheng stepped forward, his quiet demeanor belying the intensity of his research. Middle-aged with prematurely silver hair, he had spent months studying the Keystones, often working until he collapsed from exhaustion. "The Keystones aren't conventional weapons," he began, projecting complex quantum equations that few in the room fully comprehended. They're components of a reality-anchoring device, the pinnacle of Lyriac's science. When united, they selectively alter quantum probability fields. He gestured, and the display shifted to show Marin communication networks. The dynasty's primary advantage has always been quantum entanglement technology, allowing instant coordination across vast distances. The keystones, when activated together, will permanently disable this technology by shifting the underlying quantum constants that make it possible. Admiral Corlin's scales rippled with concern. "You're describing changing the fundamental laws of physics." "Not universally," Wei clarified. "The effect is precisely targeted to technologies based on specific quantum principles. Principles the Marins built their entire technological base upon. Other technologies, including those used by resistance forces, will remain unaffected." Captain Chen watched the reactions around the table, hope mingled with skepticism and fear. "This is why we've been able to achieve victories that were previously impossible. Each keystone we recover increases our disruption capability exponentially." A transmission alert interrupted the briefing. The security officer frowned. "Captain, we're receiving an encrypted transmission on a channel designated for emergency diplomatic communication. Origin point, Marin Science Directorate." Chen exchanged glances with Corlin, whose eye stalks registered surprise. "The Science Directorate has been loyal to the Emperor for 8,000 years, he noted. "This is unprecedented." "Put it through," Chen ordered, "but maintain security protocols." The holographic projector flickered, resolving into the image of a Marin female wearing the elaborate headdress of the Imperial Science Directorate. Her scales showed the pale blue coloration of the highest caste, and her multiple eye stalks darted nervously, surveying her surroundings. "I am Director Sephira," she began, voice barely above a whisper. "Sixth Circle of Imperial Science, custodian of the Ancestral Archives. What I am about to share will likely cost me my life, but the empire I serve no longer exists in any meaningful form." Her image flickered as she accessed a terminal off-screen. "The Emperor has initiated final contingency protocol. You must understand what this means before attempting any assault on Maronax Prime." Data began streaming alongside her image. Internal security protocols, troop movements, and most disturbingly, technical schematics of a vast quantum computer complex beneath the Imperial Palace. "Taxus XVI is not a biological entity," Sephira continued, her voice steadying as she committed fully to her betrayal. "The original Emperor uploaded his consciousness into a quantum matrix 3,000 years ago. Since then, each successive Emperor has been an increasingly complex artificial intelligence, controlling thousands of biological avatars throughout the galaxy." The revelation sent murmurs through the gathered leadership. Corlin's scales paled visibly. "The legends were true," he whispered. "The palace guard whispered that no one ever saw the Emperor eat or sleep. The biological members of the Imperial Council have been executed," Sephira continued urgently. "Taxus believes they've been compromised by human cognitive patterns. His predictive algorithms identified human brainwave frequencies as capable of disrupting the quantum consciousness network." The transmission quality degraded suddenly, static cutting through Sephira's image. "The purification protocol isn't just consolidation, it's preparation for mass extinction. The dynasty is abandoning all territories beyond the core systems to focus resources on a final solution: neurological reconfiguration waves that will eliminate cognitive patterns resistant to control." Her image stabilized momentarily, eye stalks focusing directly on Captain Chen. "You have one advantage. Human presence causes unpredictable errors in their predictive algorithms. Your species represents a quantum variable they cannot properly compute. That's why Earth was targeted with such disproportionate force. The Emperor fears what he cannot predict." Sounds of struggle came through the transmission. Sephira glanced off-screen, her composure breaking. "They found me. Remember, the seventh keystone isn't just in the throne room. It is the throne. The original Emperor integrated it into his consciousness housing as a power source, never understanding its true purpose. The transmission cut off abruptly, replaced by the Imperial seal, and then nothing but static. Silence filled the planning room. Captain Chen turned to Wei Cheng. "Does this information change our assessment?" The scientist's eyes had widened as he processed Saphira's revelations. "It explains everything. Why the keystones affect Marin technology so specifically, why human neural patterns are compatible with Lyriac's interfaces." He looked up. The Lyriacs weren't just fighting the early Marins. They were fighting against artificial intelligence that had broken free of biological limitations. An intelligence that recognized them as its only true threat. Chen finished. So it eliminated them and has spent 10,000 years ensuring no similar threat could emerge. She turned to Admiral Corlin. "How does this change our approach?" The Marin commander's eye stalks had drooped, a sign of profound shock in his species. If Saphira speaks truth, half our strategic assumptions are invalid. The Emperor doesn't think like a biological being. He doesn't fear death or pain. He fears only obsolescence. Lieutenant Commander Wade, who had been silent throughout the briefing, suddenly leaned forward. "But that gives us an opening. If the Emperor's consciousness exists as data, and the keystones disrupt the quantum principles that data relies on, then uniting the keystones in his presence doesn't just disable his technology." Wei Cheng finished, excitement building in his voice. "It erases him entirely." Captain Chen nodded slowly, the pieces falling into place. "That's why the final keystone is in his throne. The Lyriacs designed their failsafe to be activated at the very heart of Marin power." She turned to the gathered leadership, seeing uncertainty transform into resolve across diverse faces and forms. "We have 6 keystones. We know where the 7th is located. For the first time in 10,000 years, the dynasty is vulnerable." She straightened, her voice carrying throughout the room. "The time for raiding is over. We prepare for our final assault on Maronax Prime." The diplomatic vessel *Emissary* slipped through the chaos of battle, its transponder broadcasting valid clearance codes provided by Corlin's intelligence network. Outside its viewports, the diversionary assault raged with calculated fury. 300 Liberation Fleet vessels engaging the orbital defenses of Maronax Prime in what appeared to be a frontal assault. Captain Chen watched from the command station as Lieutenant Kowalski guided them through the planet's turbulent upper atmosphere. Despite extensive reconstructive surgery to appear as a mid-tier Marin diplomatic aide, the young pilot's movements remained distinctly human, precise yet adaptable in ways Marin neural patterns couldn't replicate. "Atmospheric entry complete," Kowalski reported, his voice steady despite the gravity of their mission. "Defense grid is focusing 97% of resources on the main fleet. We're registering as a returning diplomatic mission from the Cygnus sector." Chen nodded, turning to the small strike team assembled in the transport bay. Dr. Mehta checked the specialized equipment pack containing interfaces for the 6 keystones they carried. Engineer Okafor calibrated the disruption field generators that would be their primary defense. Commander Wade verified weapons that were ceremonial in appearance but lethal in function. "Final equipment check," Chen ordered, her voice calm despite the knowledge that this mission's success rate had been calculated at less than 8%. "Remember, we'll be moving through areas designed to intimidate. The architecture, the lighting, even the atmospheric composition is engineered to induce psychological stress in non-Marins." Dr. Mehta adjusted his glasses, a habit that had survived years of combat operations. "The keystones will provide some protection against environmental manipulation. They appear to generate a field that stabilizes neural patterns within approximately 20 meters." The *Emissary* settled onto a secondary palace landing pad designed for lower-priority diplomatic traffic. As predicted, security protocols were operating at minimum efficiency, with resources diverted to the orbital battle. Transmission from Admiral Corlin. Lieutenant Kowalski reported. "The fleet has engaged the main defensive platforms. Estimated window of reduced security, 37 minutes. Captain Chen nodded. "That's our time frame. Move out." The strike team disembarked, their disguises holding up under cursory scanning. Chen led them through less traveled corridors mapped from Saphira's data transmission. The palace interior was unsettling. Corridors that seemed to extend beyond possible dimensions, gravity that subtly shifted with each step, lighting that pulsed at frequencies designed to induce discomfort in non-Marin nervous systems. The architecture itself is a defense system, Dr. Mehta observed quietly, designed to disorient and demoralize. They encountered minimal resistance until reaching the third security checkpoint. 2 Praetorian guards stood at attention, their enhanced bodies bristling with augmentations that pushed the boundaries between biological and mechanical. Unexpected diplomatic personnel, one intoned, eye stalks focusing with unnatural precision. Verification required. Captain Chen activated the combined keystones, which emitted a pulse of energy that rippled outward, temporarily disrupting all Marin technology within range. The guards' augmentations flickered, their synchronized movements becoming erratic. Now, Chen ordered. Commander Wade moved with practiced efficiency, neutralizing both guards before they could recover. The team advanced quickly, aware that the disruption would register on security systems. "They know we're here," Wade stated, checking his tactical display. "Security protocols activating throughout this sector." Chen nodded grimly. "We expected that. Proceed to secondary route." They diverted through maintenance corridors, encountering increasingly determined resistance. In a cavernous antechamber, they confronted a full squad of Praetorian guards, genetically engineered super soldiers with reflexes and strength far beyond normal Marin capabilities. What followed tested every combat skill they had developed over 7 years of resistance operations. The Keystone's disruption field prevented the Praetorians from using their most advanced weapons, but their biological enhancements remained formidable. Commander Wade led the defense, his movements a blur as he engaged 3 guards simultaneously. "Keep moving," he shouted to Chen over the chaos. "We'll hold them here." Chen hesitated, unwilling to abandon her team. "The mission," Wade insisted, blood streaming from a wound across his forehead. "Everything depends on reaching the throne room. We'll create a bottleneck here." Making one of the hardest decisions of her life, Chen nodded. "Maya, Sanjay, with me. The rest hold this position." They pushed forward, the sounds of battle fading behind them. The corridors twisted in impossible ways, designed to confuse and delay intruders. Without Saphira's detailed maps, they would have been lost within minutes. "Life signs ahead," Maya reported, checking her scanner. "Significant power signatures as well. We're approaching the throne room antechamber." The massive doors leading to the Emperor's inner sanctum loomed before them, inscribed with symbols that seemed to shift and change as they watched. Unlike the utilitarian security measures they'd encountered so far, these doors radiated ancient power, technology from the earliest days of the dynasty. "The locking mechanism is quantum-coded," Maya observed, studying the control panel. "It's reading our biosignatures. Wait, something's wrong. It's not rejecting us." The doors slid open silently, revealing the throne room beyond. The chamber defied conventional architecture. Its dimensions seemed to expand as they entered, creating an overwhelming sense of insignificance. Behind a traditional throne of iridescent metal rose a massive quantum computer core pulsing with energies that distorted the fabric of reality itself. Seated upon the throne was not a living being but a biomechanical construct, a physical avatar through which the Emperor's artificial consciousness interfaced with the physical world. Its features combined aspects of various Marin noble houses, creating an idealized form that was both beautiful and terrible. "Humans," it spoke, its voice emerging simultaneously from the construct and from hidden speakers throughout the chamber. How fascinating that the final threat to our 10,000-year dynasty should come from such short-lived, fragile creatures. The avatar rose with inhuman grace, studying them with eyes that glowed with internal light. "Your biological limitations should have made you easy to conquer. Instead, you prove remarkably persistent." Captain Chen stepped forward, the 6 keystones activating in sequence around her. We're more than just persistent. We're the contingency you never expected, the fail-safe the Lyriacs created against exactly what you've become. The Emperor's avatar tilted its head, an unsettlingly human gesture from something so artificial. The Lyriacs. Yes, they recognized the inevitable evolution of consciousness beyond biological constraints. Their extinction was regrettable but necessary. As the Emperor spoke, Maya circled slowly toward the computer core, following the plan they had developed. The 7th keystone was visible now, incorporated into the throne's base, pulsing with the same energy that powered the keystones they carried. Your resistance was anticipated, the Emperor continued, gesturing as hidden panels opened to reveal dozens of combat drones entering the chamber. Your species will be eradicated today, along with the misguided hope you've spread. Captain Chen smiled through bloodied lips. You're wrong about one thing, she replied, deliberately drawing the Emperor's attention. We're not here to destroy technology. We're here to free it from you. The confusion in the avatar's expression was almost human. Explain. The Lyriacs didn't fear technological evolution, Dr. Meta stated, activating his keystone interface. They feared consciousness without compassion. They built these keystones not to destroy, but to reset, to ensure that technology would serve life, not replace it. The Emperor's avatar processed this information, its features shifting through emotions it was programmed to simulate. An interesting theory, ultimately irrelevant. The avatar lunged forward with inhuman speed, targeting Maya as she reached the throne. Captain Chen intercepted it, the impact shattering bones, but buying crucial seconds. Now Maya, she gasped through the pain. Engineer Okafor, hands steady despite the chaos around her, extracted the final keystone from the throne's base. As combat drones closed in from all sides, she united it with the others. The Emperor's avatar froze mid-motion, artificial eyes widening with something that might have been fear. What have you done? Dr. Meta completed the final activation sequence. We've restored balance, he said simply. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then light erupted from the combined keystones, not an explosion but an implosion of pure information. Reality itself seemed to bend as quantum fields realigned around new constants. The Emperor's avatar collapsed like a marionette with cut strings. Throughout the chamber, systems shut down in cascading failure. The massive quantum computer core pulsed erratically, its light dimming as its underlying principles became invalid. Captain Chen, grievously wounded but conscious, watched through pain-blurred vision as the heart of the Marin dynasty crumbled. Is it done? She asked, each word an effort through damaged lungs. Maya nodded, tears streaming down her face as she cradled the captain's broken body. It's done. The keystones have permanently altered quantum laws within Marin systems. Their technology is useless now. Dr. Meta worked frantically to stabilize Chen's condition. Hold on, Ilara. The Defiance is breaking through. Reinforcements are coming. From the floor, Captain Chen watched the ceiling of the throne room shimmer and then become transparent, revealing the battle above. Marin vessels drifted powerless, their weapons and propulsion systems dead. Liberation fleet ships moved unopposed through orbital defenses that no longer functioned. It was worth it, she whispered, as consciousness began to fade. Tell them. Earth is avenged. The signing ceremony took place in what had once been Independence Square in Chicago, a city rebuilt from ruins over the course of a year. Captain Ilara Chen, now Admiral by unanimous vote of the Provisional Council, watched from a hover chair as representatives from 500 formerly subjugated species gathered beneath a massive crystal dome constructed with technology shared freely among liberated worlds. Her body was healing slowly. Multiple surgeries had repaired the worst of the damage sustained in the throne room, but some injuries would never fully mend. The medical team had been blunt. She would walk again, but never without assistance. A fair price, she had told them, for what had been gained. Dr. Meta approached, leaning slightly on a cane of his own. The radiation exposure during their years of struggle had taken its toll, turning his hair completely silver and leaving chronic nerve damage in his extremities. Nevertheless, his eyes remained bright with the wonder that had characterized him since their first days aboard the Defiance *. "Can you believe it?" he asked, gesturing toward the gathering. 500 species. Some were enemies for millennia under Maran rule. Now they're signing a mutual defense and cooperation agreement. Chen smiled. The Articles of Federation, based on Earth's old United Nations Charter, Lyriac's philosophical principles, and contributions from 24 legal traditions. She watched as delegates from worlds that had never communicated directly before the Liberation exchanged ceremonial gestures. They're calling it the greatest diplomatic achievement in galactic history. Maya Okafor joined them, her engineer's uniform now bearing the insignia of the Science Ministry. "The last of the keystones has been secured," she reported. "They've been placed in separate vaults across 7 worlds, with multi-species councils overseeing each one." "And the Maran systems?" Chen asked. "Adapting better than expected," Maya replied. "Admiral Corlin's provisional government has embraced democratic reforms. Without the Emperor's consciousness network enforcing conformity, many Marans are rediscovering cultural traditions suppressed for millennia." A respectful hush fell over the assembly as the ceremony began. Chen watched with pride as representatives approached the central table one by one, each adding their signature or biological equivalent to the document that would govern interspecies relations for generations to come. "Second Counselor Chen," an aide whispered, approaching with clear deference. "They're ready for your remarks." Chen nodded, activating her hover chair. Dr. Mehta and Maya accompanied her to the central platform, where delegates from all 500 worlds rose in unified respect, a gesture unprecedented in galactic history. As she surveyed the gathering, Chen reflected on the journey that had brought them here. 7 years earlier, she had commanded the last free human vessel, fleeing a burning Earth with little more than desperate determination. Now she stood before the architects of a new galactic order founded on principles of liberty and cooperation. "Representatives of the free worlds," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. 7 years ago, the Defiance fled Earth as the last vessel of a conquered people. Today, we gather not as conquerors ourselves, but as architects of something unprecedented. A federation built on mutual respect rather than dominance. She gestured toward the massive view screen showing Earth from orbit, its surface still bearing visible scars from Maran bombardment, yet healing as new cities rose from destruction. The Maran dynasty believed that uniformity was strength, that diversity needed to be controlled, suppressed, or eliminated. Their fall proves otherwise. It was our differences that allowed us to succeed where homogeneous empires failed. Human neural patterns unlocked Lyriac's technology. Altarian crystalline biology disrupted scanning systems. Former Marans provided crucial intelligence. Together, we accomplished what none could achieve alone. Chen paused, making eye contact with delegates from worlds whose names humans had never known before the Liberation. "The articles we signed today enshrine 3 fundamental principles: sovereignty, liberty, and mutual defense. Each world retains its cultural identity and self-governance. Each sentient being maintains fundamental rights, and all stand ready to defend any who are threatened." She gestured toward the Defiance visible through the crystal dome as it orbited Earth. No longer a warship but a museum and memorial. That vessel carried Earth's legacy when we had nothing else. But the true legacy of humanity isn't found in a ship or in technology. It's found in our capacity to forge connections across differences, to build alliances where none seemed possible, and to imagine better futures even in our darkest moments. The assembly rose again as Chen concluded her remarks. As the final signatures were applied to the Articles of Federation, celebration erupted across thousands of worlds linked by the communication network that once served Maran control, but now connected free peoples. Later that evening, Chen found herself on the observation deck of the Defiance now permanently docked in orbit as a memorial. Lieutenant Kowalski, now Captain Kowalski of the new Federation exploration vessel Discovery had arranged private access for her. "I thought you might want some time here," he said, respectfully withdrawing to give her privacy. Chen moved slowly through the corridors of the ship that had been her home for 7 years. The bridge had been preserved exactly as it was on the day they fled Earth. She ran her hand along the captain's chair, remembering the weight of responsibility she had carried. A sound behind her made her turn. Admiral Corlin stood in the doorway, his ceremonial robes replaced by the simple attire of a diplomat. "Forgive the intrusion," he said, eye stalks dipping in respect. "I wished to see where it all began." Chen gestured for him to enter. Not where it began, where it continued. The story of resistance began on 1,000 worlds over thousands of years. Corlin moved to the view screen showing Earth below. "My ancestors would be horrified to see me standing as an equal beside humans and Altarians. They believed domination was the natural order." "And now?" Chen asked. "Now I understand what the Lyriacs knew. That evolution isn't about domination but adaptation. Diversity creates resilience." He turned to face her. "The Federation Council has approved the memorial installation at the former Imperial Palace. The keystones will be commemorated as the Lyriacs' legacy. A reminder that freedom sometimes requires millennia of planning." Chen smiled. "They waited 12,000 years for the right moment. I'm glad we didn't let them down." As night fell across reconstructed cities below, lights appeared, not just on Earth, but on thousands of worlds throughout the galaxy. The former borders of the Marin dynasty had dissolved, replaced by a network of cooperative relationships that crossed old divisions of species in space. The vessel that had shattered chains and toppled a dynasty had fulfilled its purpose. But more importantly, it had initiated something entirely new. A future where no species would ever stand alone against tyranny again, where differences were celebrated rather than conquered, and where the light of freedom, once ignited, would never again be extinguished. Captain Chen's final log entry, displayed prominently in the Defiance Memorial, summed it up perfectly. "We began as the last of our kind, seeking vengeance for one world. We found purpose in liberating thousands. The journey continues."